When my family first moved into rural Florida in the mid-1930s, they found themselves in the most sparsely settled state east of the Mississippi. There were barely 1.3 million people here then, and most lived along the coast. The interior of Florida was still wild and isolated. They settled in Umatilla at the edge of the sprawling Ocala National Forest, so my grandfather, Archibald Carr Sr., could become pastor of the local Presbyterian church. My grandmother was a pianist in the church and later gave music lessons to local children throughout Lake County. As avid hunters who appreciated the wilderness of the forest, it was just a matter of time before the Carr men, with the help of a local cracker carpenter, built a modest tin-roofed cabin retreat here.
My father, who was Presbyterian preacher in Umatilla, wanted a place for hunting and fishing and just plain camping. And he obtained the services of a local carpenter there in Umatilla. And this guy designed the thing, and he took me on as one of his helper and a couple of my friends at high school. I was in Umatilla High School at the time. And we put the thing up.
It was on the shores of a clear, sandy-bottomed lake called Nicotoon. The 1 square mile lake teemed with bass and brim, turtles and alligators. My grandfather, who everyone knew as Parson, enjoyed making small wooden rowboats to fish the lake. It was here that 3 generations of our family enjoyed a backwoods sanctuary in and around a little cracker cabin in the scrub. It afforded us a lasting relationship with an authentic landscape that few tourists seldom see.
So it was a rowing center and a hunting and fishing center, and mainly he wanted to see that Archie and I got education centered on wildlife appreciation. I think that was the main thing back of it.
So the first thing was to get startled by the big scrub and the sand pine community. This is like another planet in a sense, and had the scrub jays and peculiar thing to witness and to get accustomed to. And then they had the pretty lake right here in front of the cabin. So we had a lot of, it's a very different place, and so it was enlightening as, let's say, a young ecologist to get to know that the landscape in Florida can be dramatically different.
My dad, Archie Carr Jr., was a young graduate student in herpetology then, and the subtropical landscape was a natural treasure trove he could explore endlessly, fashioning ideas and ethics from this vibrant and unstudied world. Archie went on to become a world expert in sea turtles, helping the rest of us understand the connection between a single species and its migration between the many habitats that sustained it. These ideas formed the basis of conservation biology, informing the growing science of interconnectivity known as ecology. My mom, Marjorie Harris Carr, saw the devastation the cross-Florida barge canal was doing to the venerable Ocklawaha River nearby, and organized opposition to stop it. That movement created the core of the state's environmental movement. My Uncle Tom became a renowned radio astronomer in his own right, and each of us 5 children went on to become dedicated scientists and conservationists. Over 3 generations, the little cracker cabin in the scrub became something more than cedar and pine, brick and tin. It was an iconic refuge where my family could let the wisdom of Florida's wild places settle down on us.
Well, the first memory I have was of walking down the road to the cabin and seeing the lake sparkling through the forest. And we used to come and have picnics, and down through the years, for many years, would come down and spend the weekend here, have bonfires in the front yard, and mainly just enjoy the solitude and the peace and quiet of the place.
When my dad began to write, he sold his first story, Hound Magic, to Field and Stream magazine. It was a finely crafted essay that encouraged readers to carefully listen, watch, and to feel. It reminded them that a wild animal, if it froze in its tracks, not only shut down its physical movement, but its scent as well.
He wrote his first story, which he was able to sell for publication in Field and Stream. It was on deer hunting in the scrub, the big scrub. And he got a magnificent sum of $100 for the story. And that $100 was used to put the screen porch on.
Among scientists, my father became known for his gift for storytelling. He took the tales of his own field experiences to readers in 10 books, including stories about Africa, Central America, the Antilles, and of course, Florida. E.O. Wilson, the Pulitzer-winning Harvard zoologist, once said, "Archie Carr fashions poetry out of sheer exuberance, and he animates natural history like no other writer before him."
Archie's legacy to us is a rich one. It essentially is that he cared. He understood Florida. He had studied Florida as a scientist, but his commitment went beyond an intellectual one to an emotional commitment to preserve what was best of the stuff of our state.
My father told of the genetic affinity egrets have for the behemoths that upturn worms and bugs in the soil, comparing the lumbering mastodons of Florida's past with the lumbering bulldozers of its future. He wrote of jubilees in which fish mysteriously congregate in springs, rivers, and creeks. With a gentle humor, he encouraged us to appreciate the elegant quality of snakes. And he reminded us all of the vital feelings we have in our hearts for nature, a connection he claimed will always trump practical arguments for conservation. "You cannot argue the case for saving any wilderness on grounds of practicality alone," my father once wrote. "If this difficult saving is done, it will be because man is a creature who preserves things that stir him." By the 1970s, as more people began to move closer to the cabin and Lake Nicotoon began slowly to dry, we used the forest retreat less and less. By the time Dr. Tom Carr, my uncle, donated the 46 acres of land with the cabin to the U.S. Forestry Service, the little structure was dilapidated, shrouded in vines.
When I looked at it, my first thoughts were that I'd never seen a structure in such bad shape and yet still be standing. And it was probably just the brush that covered it that kept it safe during, we had those 4 hurricanes that crisscrossed the state. It's amazing that it's still standing, and all I could figure is that it's still standing for a reason.
Uncle Tom and the 5 Carr children, joined by volunteer archaeologists, architects, artists, writers, historic preservationists, and biologists, have now launched an urgent effort to restore the little cabin.
Basically be a piece-by-piece operation. We want to save as much of the original fabric as we can. It demands a lot of caring and a lot of craftsmanship.
Work has begun to evaluate the cabin's integrity, to fence the land, and to alert Floridians to the iconic value of the site itself. In a time when Florida urgently needs a champion to help them celebrate the singular nature of this extraordinary state, the revitalization of this cracker cabin in the scrub can play a vital role in this quest.
This is the cabin, and these are the woods that Archie Carr wandered in as a young man. And we've laid out a real nice nature trail through the around the lake shore, up through the flat woods, up through the bay heads, up into the sand pine scrub, and back around to the lake shore again, to give, so people can walk in the same footsteps that Archie Carr did.
The cabin's restoration, using vernacular craftsmanship, not only reminds us of the wisdom of the native culture, it also functions as a story of Florida's native wilderness and of the deep ecology of caring my family have always expressed for it.
Well, I've been hearing some thunder in the background. It's kind of appropriate for what's happening here. There's a sense of urgency we feel right now to get this filming done before the lightning gets to us on the edge of this lake. But there's also the same sense of urgency in restoring the structure. It's survived, and it's given us this opportunity to preserve it, and we're going to jump on it as fast as we can. And we're going to need some help to do it.
As my father so poignantly observed, if this difficult saving is done, it will be because, after all, man is a creature who preserves things that stir him.